It's one of the largest panel I have, and I'm very, very excited as well. Not only because of the number of panelists I have to speak to, but also about the topic, which is very new on my panel today. It's about startup advice, education, and training, and the investments and the trends and whatnot. It's about 2020 that we're going to talk about and focus on the trends of the year. So yes, welcome to VCTV, the Venture Capital TV. It's from LATOKEN, as you can all see from the background. Welcome back, speakers. I'm really excited and happy to have you back here. Before we jump into the topic and the speakers, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sunny Mohanty. I'm the Regional Director of LATOKEN. I'm based here in Singapore. I host VCTV every day, Monday to Friday, 8 p.m. Singapore. Okay, don't miss that. Great. So a little bit quickly about VCTV. We have like more speakers today and we have limited time. A little bit of VCTV was born in February 2020 because of coronavirus pandemic where we couldn't travel, we couldn't do the road shows, we couldn't go across the world to do our conferences. We used to connect speakers, investors, entrepreneurs under one roof. That was the whole goal of Blockchain Economic Forum from LATOKEN, the roadshows that we used to host before. But now that format moved online in the form of VCTV. This is an online, 100% online format, but the goal and objective of VCTV remains the same: connecting people, connecting the dots, connecting the entrepreneurs and the founders with the investors, investors with the investors, and founders with the founders. This is the place where you network and make connections for life. Great, all set about myself and VCTV. I'm going to go asking about introductions from each of the speakers today. And then we take questions, opening remarks, investments, any successful use cases you would like to share in the space, closing remarks, best VCT moments, and we close. That's the format. Thank you, and thank you so much for listening to me. This first speaker of the panel is ladies first. I'm going to start with Julia from Hong Kong. She's dialing after a very long time. Hi, Julia. Hope you're doing good. How are you? It's been a while.
See you. Really great. Thank you. Right. So
Welcome
I'm Julia.
Yeah.
I'm Julia Charlton. I'm a lawyer in Hong Kong. I've been doing this job for many years, and obviously 2020 has been exceptionally challenging. My law firm works, and me personally, we work on startups, we work on capital raise, VC, private equity rounds. We act for investors, we also act for companies, and we also help them all the way through to stock exchange exits. There's been a couple of those this year, but generally speaking, it's been a really tough year for our clients. So I've spent a lot of time in terms of education and training. Well, I think I've done about 20 or more webinars, training sessions, a lot of them focusing around corporate governance, listing exits for companies and so on. We're doing another series about when a company hits financial difficulties, because obviously that's a huge thing. So the challenge for me this year has really been to be supportive to our clients, because a lot of the time they can't really afford legal fees if they're in the startup space, and they really desperately need advice, which obviously I have to try to support them to give to some extent. Others, and I'll talk about that a bit more later, have been doing extremely well if they're in a sweet spot, and others have got great businesses, but perhaps because the customer side isn't as busy and they're not getting as much revenue and they need to raise money, they're getting squeezed on the valuations, and it's much more difficult for them to deal with investors. And we've seen quite a lot of that this year. So really the education and training and the communication with startups and indeed with investors has just been so important during 2020. And of course, so much of that has been online, endless Zoom meetings for lawyers, calls very late at night about what to do if the directors think they haven't got enough money to keep trading, and talking people through that, as well as more formal training. And I've done quite a lot of work with the stock exchange on a new ESG, that's environmental and social governance and corporate governance guide, from a practical point of view, where I interviewed lots of service providers about how they could practically help companies, particularly at the smaller end of the market, to actually pay attention to their environmental and social governance and their corporate governance. So there's a lot going on, but it's very, very challenging. And of course, Hong Kong remains very dynamic. We've had, I think, a 6% increase in the number of startups this year over last year. But of course, that's a massively lower number than the
Wow.
previous jump, the previous year, which was 21% over the previous year. So things are continuing here, and I'm looking forward to telling you more about it.
Thank you, Julia. What a start. 6% rise as compared to 21%. I'm gonna know more about that soon.
Yeah.
But what a start. Thank you so much for the introduction. Next, I'll have Vandana. Vandana, welcome back on VCTV. Your introduction, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sony, for getting me back here. First of all, I would like to tell everybody a happy Merry Christmas to all of you and season's greeting from me. I am Vanna Tolani from India. I had worked in 15 years in Singapore and Jakarta in investment banking, and this is my 6th year back in India in investment banking. While staying in Singapore and Jakarta, I had my own family fund, and I did some investments when I came back to India. Right now, I'm back to advisory. We do a lot of fundraising services. We do business consulting, mentoring. We do pitch deck making, financial modeling. This is all about us.
Excellent. Wow, what an experience. Singapore, Jakarta, now India. Welcome back, Vandana.
Thank you.
Next, I have Farhan. Farhan, long time no see. Welcome back. How are you?
Hi, Sunny. Yeah, it's been a couple of months. Good to see you. Now, in terms of introduction, just to share a little bit. So, Meet Ventures, we focus on three things: innovation, incubation, and investment. But primarily, we are we major in open innovation. So, we are specialists in running corporate accelerators. So that's what we do best under innovation. And I think what's unique is we do a lot of our work in Southeast Asia. So that's where we specialize in. In terms of incubation, this year has been quite an interesting year. We do our own incubation of edutech startups, but I think we've gone a little bit downstream to basically work with universities. So we are currently working with the National University of Singapore to basically run a program for next year. We've started this year for next year to basically I think just to touch on the point of what Julia said, it's been a challenging year, a lot of startups having being in a difficult situation. So I think it's also the year, I mean, it's a season to be jolly, yes, but it's also
Yes,
the year to basically learn, relearn, unlearn, right? So
absolutely.
yeah, so I think we're also using the opportunity to educate more people who probably have been in entrepreneurship at the very beginning, but made a bit of mistakes, or those who are basically maybe not having much options in terms of employment, but they felt that they want to upgrade. But they felt they want to start a business. So I think to prevent or rather to ensure that people make informed decisions, we work with NUS to basically uh, run quite a big entrepreneurship program for people living in Singapore, right? And then the
Absolutely.
last yeah, and then for the
Go
just
ahead.
the last point, we so in terms of investment, we are actually working very closely with one of the property developers in Singapore, which I think I've shared with you, Sunny, before about
Yes,
PropTech. So
right.
that's something that we will be focusing on for next year as well. So yeah, thank you.
Excellent. I'd like to know more about that stuff as well, maybe later offline. Thank you so much, Farhan, and welcome back on VCTV. So next, I have Devang. Um, Over to you, please, with your introduction. Sorry, Fabio, next to you. Devang, go ahead. Sorry.
Not a problem. Thank you, Sani. Thank you, LATOKEN, for this opportunity. So I am a partner at Anthill Ventures, which is a speed scaling ecosystem. We invest in companies at pre-Series A and Series A in three verticals: healthcare, consumer, and media. And I handle the healthcare vertical. By the same token, I'm a founding member at Lumos, which is a healthcare accelerator that we run along with HCG, India's biggest oncology chain, and also into multi-speciality, but primary focus being oncology. So I'm deep into healthcare, both from an investing and advisory standpoint. 2020, even healthcare is not immune to 2020 unless you're smack dab and center in the COVID ecosystem. So it's been a challenge, but luckily a couple of our startups have done some really good pivots during COVID, and not that we're happy about COVID, but they actually benefited from the COVID crisis. And one of them out of Singapore, Chronic Care, is actually doing really well. It's widely successful in Singapore on account of their thermal screening device. So what we did from the broad portfolio is the healthcare startups, we encourage them to pivot in time to somehow address the COVID situation from a medical logistics information standpoint, just to be able to address the crises and grow on that account. And the rest of the portfolio, we basically around let's say April-May timeframe, we audited each of the portfolio companies and made detailed reports as to how they could ride out the crisis, either by of course, avoiding all unnecessary expenses. Those came to a standstill clearly. And the expenses that could not be avoided, how to spread them out over more months, how to extend the runway, how to uncover and unravel synergies between portfolio companies to help them grow and stay afloat in this crisis. And I think we've largely come out of this unscathed. There's not been any bad, really adverse scenario across the portfolio. So that's been great. And even in scenarios where maybe a portfolio company had to lay off a few people, luckily there's been other portfolio companies looking to hire people of the similar skill set. So we help those people find a new home and things like that. So overall, we're happy with how the outcome came out, in spite of obviously a very challenging year.
Absolutely, totally agree. It's a very challenging year for many of us, and mostly all of us. But the way the startups are pivoted with the help of mentors like you, this is what we're going to learn more on our session today. And thank you so much, and welcome back on VCT with Devang. Next, Fabio. Fabio, welcome back. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks, and thanks for inviting me to your show once again. Bit of on my background. I'm an economist by training. I have a PhD in economics from the University of Chicago, and I started my career in international institutions such as the International Monetary Fund in Washington, then European Central Bank in Frankfurt, Goldman Sachs in London, and I moved to the Arabian Peninsula to work for sovereign institutions and public institutions, first in Qatar, in Dubai, and my last experience was with the Oman Investment Fund, where I was for 8 years the chief strategy officer and chief economist. Since last year, I joined as partner a boutique investment bank, which is called Golden Eagle, and has also subsidiaries in Dubai and Hong Kong under the brand Emintad. And what we do, we invest, we have an asset management branch which manages a fund dedicated to innovative companies. And in addition, we advise startups, grow-ups to list in the American OTC market, which is one of the most liquid and the most advanced for everything that has to do with financing innovation, from biotech to IT, to cybersecurity, and so on and so forth. So that's in a nutshell my background.
Thank you so much, Fabio. Again, startups, access to American markets. There you go, Fabio.
Yep.
And welcome back on VCTV. Yes. And next I have Harsh. Hi, Harsh. Welcome back. It just felt like we spoke yesterday on VCTV. How are you today?
All good, all good. So good to be back here again. So a little bit about myself. I'm Harsh. I'm from India. I've been in the media and advertising industry for about 7-8 years. Then I decided to move back and start my own startup. I eventually had 4 startups, out of which 2 I got acquired and 2 I had to shut. Post that, I was starting in Maharashtra's first incubation center, which is funded by the central government. So I was working in forming the team for that. Parallelly, I was also working with a couple of startups to raise funds for them. That's how my investment banking journey started. Since early 2020, I started working with AHA. So currently, I'm a venture partner with AHA, where I take care of specifically EdTech, IoT, AI, and machine learning startups, which usually come on the platform. In terms of evaluating them, handholding them, and if at all they do qualify, we also take care of their funding rounds. So currently we do around 50 to 60 pitch days on a monthly basis, out of which 8 to 10 we shortlist and we usually take them on board. So currently I'm handling around 16 startups, which are across regions as well as sectors. So that's about from me. I'm very glad to be here again, as if I was there yesterday. So very
Yeah.
happy to be here again.
Thank you, Harsh, and welcome back on VCT. We're going to know more from you on the topic as well. Last but not least, Gary. Gary, welcome back. I was just watching you with Terrence, and welcome back on my show as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, it's great to be here. It's great to see friends, Harsh, Fabio, Vandana, New, Farhan, Devang, Julia. It's great to be here. So my name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 16 companies. I've been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion 18 months ago, a little over 18 months ago, I guess. And I'm also the founder of a company called Eva.ai. Eva.ai is a company that's an HR tech that I founded with a billionaire, David Yang, in Silicon Valley. I'm Silicon Valley based, although right now, because of the pandemic, I'm in Palm Beach in Florida at my house. So anyhow, I'm also the CEO and co-founder of GSD Venture Studio. We are a premier AI venture studio. We curate companies from around the world, use Silicon Valley support to help them go global. I've done NASDAQ IPOs. Haven't done the OTC things. Fabio's the expert in that, but I've done NASDAQ IPOs, and I believe that really today, this actually has been the greatest opportunity for us, because now we've got this digital transformation, just like you've said with VCTV, being able to spread the word around the world. I know I get a ton of messages everywhere now from VCTV viewers that are interested in how they can go out to the rest of the world and how can get their message out, especially now during the pandemic, where in the places like the UK, they're totally locked down, right? And we believe we found a solution to that. So great to be here and great to see everybody today.
Excellent. Thank you, thank you, Gary. Sorry about that. Thank you, and welcome back on VCTV. We have 7 speakers today on a very interesting topic. And as we know, it's a very challenging year for everyone, including the startups and the investors. So we'd like to hear from our speakers. So just a heads up about the timing. So we just a little be on brief about whatever we're sharing the insights. I'm going to start with Julia first. Julia, let's just drill down a little bit into a startup story, a success pivot, a successful use case I'd like to share with our audience. Thank you.
Sure. Well, there's been quite a few that I've been working on. One was an online debt factoring platform, which has actually won the HKMA, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority's FinTech of the Year award, and is really expediting SME funding in Hong Kong. But perhaps one which has actually been through a funding round this year I've been working on, I'll mention. It's called Praxonomy. And it's, I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's been sort of a year of extremes. I think some companies which found themselves in the right place have just done brilliantly and have been really hot. They're in e-commerce, they're in healthcare, or, sort of related, the right kind of healthcare related industries. And others have struggled more because of client onboarding. And the one that I would like to mention is Praxonomy, which is an online board portal. So if boards of directors of large boards, funds, listed companies, and so on, they want to have all their board documents online. They want to be able to link that to Zoom to move straight to a meeting, and they need it all in a secure environment. Now, obviously, that type of business is just made for this kind of environment, because nobody can deliver hard copies of documents. Sending things out by email isn't necessarily secure. So to put everything in that universe of a secure board portal is a wonderful concept. And it was quite new. It was starting off at the end of last year. And they were fundraising then. They managed to get some money, but they managed to do another successful raise this year. Tough negotiations, but they got quite a large strategic investor to come in, betting on the growth of this kind of business in this market. And this is an entirely Hong Kong grown startup, which is serving obviously Hong Kong companies, listed companies, of which there are many, but there's, you know, it's also been recommended by the London Stock Exchange as a suitable, secure portal. So it has a very diverse range of users, and it did raise the money to continue to grow this year. So I think that's important. Another one which has done well is a company called Indemandly, and that is that's a widget, which is a contact widget, which software, which floats on top of websites. So instead of going into someone's website and looking for inquiries and sending them a message, you just click on something and you quickly can type into it, and it would be on the top of the website on a mobile phone. It can be linked to the emails. It's linked to all the social media of the business, which is seeking people to contact them with inquiries for calls, meetings, or pricing or whatever. And that's been doing very well because clearly there's so many sales, so much has been going on online, that they were just in a good place to really increase their business and their profile. But of course, at the same time, a lot of customers just don't have a lot of money for discretionary spending. So I think that does place some constraints on the paid versions or increasing fees for many of these business-related software products, which are not, they're not very expensive, and you can clearly make a case for using them, but they're not cheap either. They are a cost. So these types of products have really got to justify themselves in this market. And I think those two are successful. They've managed to. I mean, I have other clients who, for example, a wonderful AI company, they're just fantastic. But, you know, you have to be in the right place with robots and so on. So robotics at the moment is probably not quite so hot, because robotics, which unless they have very specific applications like medicine or defense or something like that, they're much more useful for sort of physical events and so on, where people are captivated by interaction with robotics and so on. But all of this is going on in Hong Kong. You know, we have startups across a range of industries. I think we've got about nearly 500 startups in the finance sector. So yeah, those are some examples of what I've been working on recently.
Excellent, Julia. Excellent. 3 success stories coming out of Hong Kong, and one of them won by Hong Kong Monetary Authority. Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing those with our audience. Next, I have Vandana. Over to you.
Yeah. So I have done a fintech deal from India that aggregates various financial services and provides them to 500 million people at the bottom of half of the pyramid through a network of retailers acquired in bulk via corporate tie-ups. Their market caters to services like cash deposit, cash withdrawal, recharge, bill pay, insurance, loan, mutual fund, bus, flight, train ticket booking. And they are in B2B and B2C space, covering retail networks, mobile-based organizations, kiosk-based organizations, both in rural and urban India. I have done a deep tech deal from UK where they are building a FPGA-based artificially evolving, contextually aware edge platform designed to accelerate deep learning 3D sensing data. It is a perception software and smart edge device which helps machines learn and perceive faster. And the technology can be applied in quite a few areas like robotics, smart spaces, security and surveillance, automation, intelligent transport systems, etc. Another company that I worked with is using contactless facial recognition and temperature measurements to reduce transmission of coronavirus. They use AI in health situations. Then I'm doing a health tech startup from Dubai that is dedicated to simplifying the healthcare ecosystem by improving access and enriching patient engagement through a connected platform that integrates healthcare, provides insurers and patients. Their concept is connected care by facilitating real-time digital communication between patients and providers, including in-person consultations, telehealth, and secure electronic communication between clinicals and their patients. Then I've done a home kitchen chain from Singapore that is enabling home chefs to start their own food business. They help home chefs serve freshly prepared, hygienic and exquisite home meals without having, hassles. Home cooked meals with great taste, maintaining hygiene and standards with convenient plans and good packaging. And any individual can sign up for that. A meal delivered at their preferred time, arriving at their doorstep, and customer can order cultural dishes under a brand name they can trust. So these are some of the things that I've done.
Wow, Vandana, it seems like you've been very busy. I'm very busy year for you, year 2020.
Yes, it's been a very busy and a very productive year for me, I must say. I'm very glad about that.
Good to hear that. Good to hear such successful use cases. Thank you so much for sharing that with our audience.
Thank
Next,
you.
Farhan. Farhan, over to you, please. You are mute.
Sorry. So yeah, thanks, Sunny. So I think one of the most clearest indicators of success would be very much what the investors want, right? So
Yeah.
so I think very much I think what we've seen, especially in Southeast Asia, I think the last 6 to 9 months are basically I would term businesses born out of COVID, right? So I think these are basically industries that typically in I would say education, logistics, supply chain, I would say food tech, agri-tech, and so on. So and I would say that because these due to the nature of COVID-19 and also a lot of us being isolated and so on, these are the industries that have continued to thrive. And I think regarding a success case, so that's one of my investees, Inkno. So Inkno from Singapore, they have successfully created an e-learning platform. So they were so because of, again, I mentioned about businesses born out of COVID, their business was different, but because of the need for e-learning solutions, they have been very successful, and they are now, in the span of 9 months, they're now in 100 countries providing e-learning solutions.
The founder was on VCTV. Sorry, I just had to add.
Correct.
The founder was on VCTV. Yes.
Yep, he was. Yes, Dr. John. Yes. So I think I just wanted to. I mean, these are just flavors from Southeast Asia, and just wanted to share.
Did you want to share something about the NUS program, or we take that later? It's okay.
We can take that later. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Farhan, for those insights. Next, I have Fabio. Over to you, please.
Obviously, the sector that has seen a skyrocketing interest from investors is the biotech pharma, and I don't think this is an earth-shaking information. But what is interesting is that the vicissitudes after the pandemics have opened the eyes on the approval process. In other words, the fact that vaccines have been found and approved in record time compared to previous cases means that the whole regulatory process to approve drugs, treatments, and new device must be completely revamped. As of now, the procedures take too long, are too costly for the industry, and they are holding back innovation. This has become clear. So we hope that based on this experience, the Food and Drug Administration in the US and other analogous agencies around the world will be more keen to relax their procedures and have a better balance between risk and benefits. So That's why the biotech sector offers a number of opportunities which weren't there before, and this is due to the game-changing nature of new regulation that probably we'll be seeing over the next few months all around the world.
All right. All right. Thank you, Fabio, for those quick insights. I really like it today, Fabio. Very specific, precise, and your video is not cutting out. Thank you so much. Devang, over to you now.
Sure, thanks. Thanks for all the insights. So I manage the healthcare vertical within Anthill. So it's been, it's been a challenging year because people that used to go into hospitals for traditional ailments, right, they stopped going because of fear of contracting COVID. So, a lot of them started doing through a mix of telemedicine or just dealing with the situation. So, the whole sector changed quite a bit. But what we did in a couple of cases, we convinced our existing startups to try and pivot. So the best example is Chronicare, which is actually a company based out of Singapore. Their basic product is a wound management device, a wound measurement device. They measure all aspects of a wound: length, breadth, depth, temperature, color, things like that, through a layer of AI and ML on top of thermal imaging. So, it's a great software, they were already doing pretty well. And then when COVID hit, people, as I said, just started going lesser to hospitals to manage lesions and wounds and stuff like that. But we worked with them, we did a lot of technical analyses, and we found out that their device is actually good just for thermal screening. And we all know temperature is one of the key, symptoms of COVID. So theirs is one of the few devices that can measure temperature for a group of people at one time. So it's invaluable for, let's say, any public place like an airport, a senior center, a bus stop, or any place that has, a dozen people coming at one time. If you want to just do a triage for those people that have temperature and put them in a separate line, essentially. And they pivoted really well. A really smart group of people from NUS, NTU, PhDs from NUS, NTU. They pivoted in time to build a thermal screening device, which became widely popular in Singapore. As you might know, a lot of the COVID cases in Singapore were epicentered around foreign worker dormitories there. And their device was widely used there. And as a result, they could do a much efficient screening. And in all humility, I'd say Chronicare was one of the key reasons why a lot of the Singaporean, if not the economy, a lot of the places could go back safely. Workers could come back to their workplaces with more safety because you could screen multiple people at one time. And it's a classical case of a company that used existing technology, existing talent and engineers to quickly pivot during COVID and become widely successful.
Great, Devang. Good to know that. Are you the only investor in that company, Chronicare?
No, we have invested along with a couple of Singapore incubating funds. We're on the cap table along with them.
Okay, that's definitely the best success story to share with the audience. Why not? Thank you so much, Devang, for sharing that.
Thanks.
Next, I have Harsh. Over to you, Harsh.
Thank you so much. So this year actually has been quite exciting because AHA Ventures as a platform, we need to work even harder in building use cases. So, while we've got around 3,000 plus investors, majority of them are angels, right? So, and angel investing as a trend, someone who typically does angel investing for a living, were also holding on the funds to their chest and saying this year probably will go easy. So follow-on rounds were much more than new or early stage startups because that trend probably about 2 years back when early stage startup were like a boom in India. That obviously did not happen. A follow-on or late stage investment happened a lot. Also, second trend, which I honestly think caught on quite well, is the never before weightage was given on the founders, how what kind of pedigree they come from, IIT, IIMs, background of entrepreneurship, how already have sold a startup. That kind of perception was very very high this year. Nonetheless, we've got very exciting couple of 4 deals which were interesting. So if you look at the background which each one were doing was also very interesting. So first was CPAL. CPAL is a two-wheeler canopy. Now again, the founders are IIT Bangalore based. They've made this while they're in college itself, and they've immediately after passing out they made this. Now with the IIT tag they had, it was quite easy to get one of the alumni to come as the first angel investors. So like I said, angel investing as a whole has changed the way it was doing business, because the risk takers were very high earlier. But now it has become someone like a clubbed investment, saying that, okay, this guy is doing it, maybe I can invest even further. So where the rounds were getting closer much faster because single investors were investing more, did not happen this year. So with
Right.
people also, we had someone from IIT background itself coming and giving a first check. With that, looking at other IIT alumni also came back and said, hey, you know what, if you're interested. And that's how we, gradually closed the round. Second
Thank
is Snackable. That's so interesting. Now look at how the pitch pivoted from before COVID. So Snackable was with us before COVID, but package affordable health snack is what the positioning happened post COVID, because everyone was about health conscious, sitting home, working from home, putting a lot of weight. So that pitch automatically turned down on a lot of heads. Snackable, again, we use a strategy of getting all those health conscious people or investors who are angel investors who are working on that side very well. We obviously got eventually an institutional investment also for Snackable, but our pitch really helped them garner a lot of attention from investors. Third is
Right.
Backbenchers. Backbenchers is content company. Now again, due to COVID, people were sitting home, so the content consumption went off the roof. Not only for television or mobile, but OTT platform especially went really off the roof. So all those guys who are into making a content which is recently okay, really had a good mileage. So Backbenchers, I would say, before COVID had a good story, but during COVID had an excellent story, because their content consumption went threefold, fourfold in the next 3-4 months post COVID. So they had to really work hard and come up with good content. Their clients were very impressive. That's really helped them to close around faster. Again, this was a mix of angel as well as institutional,
Okay.
round which we completed. And the last is Ripsy. So Ripsy is a nutrition tech platform. So where how much nutrition you're taking and what percentage you're doing. So this is something which was again health related post COVID, really made sense. So these four, I mean, we are in the loop of closing three more. That's into health tech and health tech as well as ed tech. But these four we have already closed as of last month, and we are hoping to close even further more than this. Thank you.
Great sharing their best successful use cases. I am interested in the snackable one because I snack a lot. Thank you, Harsh. Last one was Gary, your successful use cases story. I know you've shared with us, but our audience would like to know more. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, I can tell you right from the heart on the EVA side. So I can tell you as a founder, I can tell you as an investor. So EVA came out of Russia. So it came out of a company called Abby. We brought it to the US in Silicon Valley. I co-founded that company. That company is now one of the top AI HR tech companies in the world, maybe number one today. And so it's not all about, I can talk to you for hours or days about the companies that I've got, but it's really about how's it done, right? Because the viewers are really interested. What's the secret sauce? The secret sauce is just like shows like VCTV. It's being able to meet with fellow investors that you develop relationships with, because the way it works in Silicon Valley, and my office is 5 minutes from Stanford University, and it's about connections. It's about contact, and it's trust. So just think about it. Imagine a picture. Thousands of companies are sending their pitch decks to, hello at whatever VC fund. What's the chance of that being looked at? Talk to those investors directly. It's slim to none, right? So you need to get visibility. Today in this world, what is it all about? Well, it's shows just like this. It's being able to be looked as a thought leader, writing articles. I mean, I personally write now anywhere from 3 to 5 articles every week and publishing. I've got a few shows that I run. So you got to get the visibility out and be looked at as a thought leader. That's really important because guess what happens when that VC goes in and Googles your name or Safari, they want to say, who are you? What have you done? And so you've got to give them that trust. You've got to have a warm introduction. The warm introduction is somebody that knows that VC directly. It's a friend of a friend, right? Whether it's a family officer, VC. That's just the way it's really done. So you may remember that, and I deal with multi-billionaires regularly, daily, actually. And when you talk to them, they're looking for deals just like everybody else. It's just they got a lot more money to invest in the deals. And they want to make sure if you've done a deal. So Click Software was a company that I was on the original team of from Haifa, Israel. We brought it into Silicon Valley. I was hired by Oak Investment Partners as senior vice president, changed the name from IAT to Click Software. That company, we did an IPO on NASDAQ. Then it was sold for 1.35, but a little tiny company. It came out of the Israeli Air Force. So the key is you got to have access and you got to have that visibility. Speaking engagements, anything that you can do for that visibility, especially today. So my company, Zemply, is one of my companies. She's an Indian entrepreneur, went to Stanford University, got her MBA at Stanford. We helped her develop the AI through contacts that we have. Now she's one of the top 7 AI remote patient monitoring companies, because guess what? There's a lot of elderly people over 60 years old in the US, 70 million baby boomers. So, this is not rocket scientists. If you got a lot of people, they're going to need a lot of care and they don't want to be in a nursing home. So how do you keep them at home longer, and so they can have a better quality of life? So, and I went through it with my father. My father had a stroke. They wanted $14,000 a month to put him in a nursing home. I said, this is ridiculous. He's my dad. So I put sensors in his house. I spent about 90 grand because I was experimenting. I put it in. My father said he was going to die in a week. He lived 3 years. Quality, great years I spent with him. How much is it worth? To have one more hug or one more kiss at Christmas time, how much is it worth, right? So what we got to do is we got to think about how can we can apply these incredible technologies. How do we get access to the, so at GSD, what I did was simple. I said, okay, part of the problem is these companies from around the world don't have access to money in Silicon Valley, right? This is a no-brainer. And the talent is there. So why not put together a group that really focuses on, bringing them out to Silicon Valley where you can do those introductions. I'm also a VC myself, so I've got a wide network. It's simple. It's like, but sometimes we forget. We thought, oh no, we're developing our MVP. Do we have product market fit? I started 2 accelerators myself, huge accelerators in Russia. And it's just like, that's great, but how do we go to the next level? So regional dominance, get revenue, then go global.
Right.
And do it as fast as
Fantastic.
you can.
Right. Fantastic insights, Gary, as always. This is the time opening up the floor for all the panelists to talk to each other. Any questions for any other panelist here? I'm opening up the floor for you to ask questions to each other. Any questions, please? Anyone?
Let me give let me break the ice. What is the overriding element for you that pushes the decision-making process towards a yes? So what do you want to see in a proposal that is hard to resist?
Very good question. Let's start with Vandana with this question. 1 or 2 points, Vandana.
Well, when I look at a company, I look at a few things. One is the kind of technology, what is the revenue that they have, and what is the founder's background. Sometimes I also look into the valuations when I look into the company, and these are the few things that really go well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Farhan, are you able to share your?
Yeah, thanks, Sunny. So I think very quickly, if I may just zero in on probably the most important element. I'm not sure if everyone here agrees with me, but if I were to just choose one criteria and only one, I would say I would place my bet on the founder himself, right? So and I think, you know, I have seen and I think, you know, the importance of the founder is integral, because many a times we've seen founders being able to bring the business from, you know, maybe ideation all the way up to, you know, scaling to Series B, and then, you know, they stop there and so on. I personally have seen companies go down the drain because of, you know, the company is just being I would say reliant on just one founder, because they just have
Mm.
one founder, for example, and there goes investor money, 30, 50 over million down the drain, and then next thing you know, 3 to 4 years on, the founder is no longer there, but the company is still bleeding. So I think, like I said, if I were just to choose one element, I would say with the founder experience, I agree with Vandana. The experience is important. I look at character as well, right? And I think, you know, we always want founders who, I think I've spoken to so one of my friends is a managing partner at a private equity firm, right, PE firm. So he told me, say, I mean, of course, he's in his 60s, I'm in my 30s, and he said, Fahan, if I were to turn back the time again, you know what degree would I take? He said, on top of my finance degree and my other degrees, I take a psychology degree. So I said, I said, Nick, why?
Wow.
He said, yeah, he said, because in my 20 to 30 years of experience, he said, I'm very good with.
Okay, is Farhan breaking now? We don't see him. I see him frozen. Okay, Devang, would you like to go next?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Sure.
Farhan, you froze in between. Please continue what you were saying. We just lost you.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. So I think probably that's my point about character, and of course competency. I mean, yeah, I think it's not rocket science, but yes, thank you.
It's about people. Okay, thank you. Devang, over to you, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of good things Farhan said. I'll just echo and amplify a couple of them. I think for us, the answer to Fabio's question is straight the team. You know, the stage that we invest pre-A, you know, there's so many variables that are going to happen from pre-A to Series A to B. So many things are going to change. It's just the pedigree of the team. You know, they have to have thought through the market and all that. You know, just that's more of a sanity check. But the pedigree of the team and as we discussed, they should have the humility to pivot. I think, you know, you always see some really stubborn people who just won't, you know, admit to the fact that they misread a market or they misread a situation or a partnership or something like that, and they get stuck to their own belief. Those situations do not end well. So, you know, it's hard to know in 2-3 meetings, but you can, if you can find the right team that's flexible enough to align with needs of a changing market and the pedigree of the team, where they studied, in fact, what they did after the education, all that is important. The dynamics within the team are also important. So we prefer that the founders know each other for a few years before they start a company. You know, campus affinities are good. You know, sporting groups. You know, the affinity, that is integral to the company before the startup is created is really important, because there's bound to be some really troubling situations, and that's where, you know, if that affinity is not there, you know, it begins to unravel.
Yeah.
So, and the last thing in the team is that it should be the management team should be well-rounded. So at a minimum, there should be a business co-founder and a technical co-founder. So, you know, if there's a situation where there's an MBA that starts a business and then hires a CTO, that's less ideal than, you know, a business co-founder and a CTO coming together to start a company, right? In the second situation, it's likely that the hired CTO will not have the same passion and the same interest in growing a startup, at least through troubled times, as it were if he were a co-founder of the company.
Right. I like one point that you both, Devang and Farhan, mentioned. It's about the humility of the founder to pivot.
Yes.
It's about the psychology of the person. I agree on, I think, whatever you both said. I mean, I like to know more about that. It's very interesting. Why wouldn't a founder would like to pivot if it's bleeding?
It's
I don't know.
yeah, it's just sheer stubbornness sometimes. They just refuse to admit to the fact that they misread a market or misread a situation, they mispriced a product, they struck the wrong partnerships, or they hired the wrong person. They just often are, it's not often that this happens, but there's been many situations where they refuse to listen to VCs and advisors on the fact that they have not understood the situation properly.
Absolutely. I'm going to come to Gary, but Julia, do you have anything to add here?
Only just really quickly, because I see this as a lawyer, but to some extent, I'm an entrepreneur as well. I do run my own law firm. I think it's, to echo what's being said, who you hire is incredibly important. And, obviously it's very important that the founders are deeply engaged themselves, but the talent they manage to bring on and inspire, and inspiring that passion around them is terribly important. But the other thing, just very mundane, I see, is that when really quite great ideas and companies come to raise money, they can fall over if they haven't got their documentation and their regulatory position in order. And obviously a lot of startups push boundaries, and that's absolutely fine. You would expect that, but you still need to have everything in relatively good shape, not with massive legal problems, because you could have the best business in the world, and if an investor sees some massive legal problem, they're not going to invest. So sorting everything out in a relatively organized way, which is challenging for a startup. They're busy, that's maybe not their skill set or their interest, and hiring lawyers is expensive. But, I do caution that all of that is also pretty important, although it's very boring.
All right, a very key point as well, legal stuff. Thank you so much, Julia, for that. Gary, over to you. Please go on.
Yeah, sure. So I've written several articles about this in Forbes magazine, and I started 2 accelerators that have had thousands of people through them in Russia. So this is what I found to be really important. So intergenerational teams, where you've got the young folks, ladies and guys, at the same time, you've got people with the gray hair that have experience, that understand, that have the contacts and connections. That's truly important. And so you got to think differently. The other thing is cultural diversity. I mean, one of the things we really promote is blended teams, people from all over the world, because those teams seem to be a lot stronger, a lot more powerful. And then decentralized teams. So look wherever, in my case, it's artificial intelligence. Look for where the talent is, because there's some economic advantages to finding that talent in the right place. So whether it's in Africa or the Ukraine or Belarus or Russia or India, wherever that talent is, go to that talent. And one of the things it said about flexibility, it's critically important. I mean, with Eva, I had to pivot 3 times. We went from a Google-like search to remote workforce management. Having the flexibility, it's not easy, but the other thing is, think about the fundamentals. You need to do, Bob Dorff and Steve Blank wrote a book, The Startup Owner's Manual, and Bob was dean of my school in Russia. The thing is customer discovery. Make sure you validate that the teams validate their hypothesis. Are people really willing to pay for it? Do they like it? So how do you do it? What I did, I would take my iPhone and I would go down Palo Alto, the University Drive. I would go in and meet people in cafes. You say, do you have a minute? Do you have 2 minutes? And I'm the CEO of the company, right? What do you think? Can I tell you about my pitch deck? It was amazing, the feedback I got. It dramatically impacted how we looked at our business. Then you want to make sure, once you have those hypotheses tested, the people are really willing to take money out of their pockets. So I look for teams that understand these are the basics. This is 101. Are people willing to do it? Then the other thing is, there's a different mindset from being a regional player to going global, entirely different mindset. So do they have the flexibility? Most times the CEO of that startup will not be the CEO through a B round, right? They just won't, because many times 68% of the time, those founders are technical founders, most of the time. And you do need charismatic individuals to lead the company. To go through further rounds, you've got to be able, I remember I took a class at Stanford, I took continuing education at Stanford. And one of the classes had an actor and a business coach. And we would be into these classes to say, okay, now Gary, there's a crisis in the company. There's going to be a press conference right now. Okay, let's go. And you were put on the spot. And these were some of the brightest people on the planet Earth from everywhere. And so part of it is, you got to be good at speaking. You got to be captivating in chanting, as Guy Kawasaki said, because those are critically important to convey your message, to be able to paint pictures with words. And those kind of founders are the ones that we're looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gary. And I really like it. Did you just say actor and
business? Yeah, exactly. I took acting coach and business all in the same course. And let me tell you, it was not easy, because when you have really bright people in a class that are from around the world in a class, and you're put on a spot in front of them to talk about something, there's a crisis just at your company, you're up next, Gary.
Right. Thank you.
It's no games. And those are the kind of things, but that training is important.
Right. So. Absolutely. So very, very good insights coming out from Gary. Very new for me as well, but great. Fabio, I mean, I'm sure you've got your question answered. I have Harsh as well, who's going to add his insights.
Yeah. Sorry, Fabio.
Yeah, it's the personality, the background, of founders, of key people in a startup are definitely important. I read the statistics though, where only say 40% of startups maintain the same CEO from beginning to, let's say, break-even stage. So the rate of change and the rate of failure of the components, let's say the original team, is extremely high. And I can see why, because those who are good from the technical point of view are not good sellers, might not be good managers, might have a personality that tends to clash with the others in the team, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So that is definitely, the best criteria is past history. So if somebody has already done something similar, something analogous in his previous life, that's already, a good quality check.
Right.
But in addition, what I look for is whether the startup actually feels a need. So there is something that nobody has cared about, and this company can provide a service, a good device, a software for which there is high demand and very little competition. So that's the one of the, I would say, I would place this element on par with the personality / background of the proponents.
All right. Great insights, Fabio, as well. Adding on to that, Harsh, very quickly over to you.
Yeah. Well, me being a serial entrepreneur myself, I like entrepreneurs who really have that typical DNA of hustling, right? So you have to figuring out in the same inventory, how can I make a difference? So currently, whenever startup or founders I evaluate, the primary thing I look at how quickly they have changed their business model or pivoted, what do you call it, in terms of making a new revenue stream in this condition. So, two examples I would give. So one was a electric bike manufacturer. So obviously with COVID, people were not venturing out. So the revenues went down. They started giving their bikes on rent, where it acted as a delivery model. So that quickly turned around to a zero revenue model to a highest revenue month, because they started working on giving it on rent instead of selling their bikes. The second one was someone who was into manufacturing of cloth, started making PPE kits, pivoted and started making revenues. Quickly deciding to change and trying out new markets. I think that's very impressive.
Yeah.
Because that shows that as an entrepreneur, I can bet on that horse again. Because if this idea fails, I have a good entrepreneur to bank on. So that's from my side. Yeah.
I think the same pivoting and hustling is just,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, great. I'm just conscious of the time. Quickly, starting from Julia, closing remarks for the show on the topic and your VCTV best moment for the year.
Sorry, what was that,
Oh,
Sonny?
so basically the closing remarks.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think you haven't been on VCTV for that long, but still, what are your best moments on VCTV so far?
Okay, yeah, fantastic. Yes, I was talking before. Well, this has been wonderful, fantastic listening to these terribly knowledgeable people here. So this is definitely a good moment. But earlier this year, I was on a social impact investing event on VCTV, and that was incredibly moving because we heard so much about some amazing stories about social impact investing in India. And I actually talked about a silk business in Myanmar, which I was talking about, which is employing women in Chin state, and it was all amazing. Of course, that's been totally affected by COVID, but I just want to mention great ending to that because they've pivoted, like even though they're social impact, like entrepreneurs, and they're making the most beautiful silk masks, which are actually selling for quite a lot of money, and they're posting them all over the world and shipping them and so on. So yes, we all have to pivot and stay entrepreneurial.
Thank you so much, Julia. That was my panel. I remember that very clearly. Thank you. Vandana.
Yeah, hi. So this is my third time on VCTV, and I'm thankful and grateful to Sony and Carol. Happy to meet you all here and learn from each and every one. There's a diverse platform here. I encourage everybody to come on this platform and take the maximum out of it because there is a lot of diversity here. Take insights from people like Gary, Fabio, who have been seniors in this industry. There's a lot to learn from them. And my best VCTV moment was when I did the deep tech talk with Sony. We were all women on that platform.
Remember that. Thank you so much, Vandana. I still remember that.
Yes.
Next, I have Devang.
Hi, thank you, Sunny. Thank you, everyone. Yes, again, I'm sorry, I just have to log out a few minutes earlier. There's been a death in the family. Yeah, I think, thank you. Your events have been wonderful. I don't know if there's been any one moment that has been great. I think every seminar here, you meet a diverse audience, diverse in terms of geography, educational background, pedigree, experiences, and then there's people like Gary who've done it all basically. So what you learn from this audience is truly engaging and informative, and it's just always been a great experience. Thank you all.
I'm sorry to hear about the death in the family. Please.
It wasn't unexpected, but thank you.
Next, I have Farhan. Farhan, you're on mute.
This happens to me all the time. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sunny. So, yeah. So second time on VCTV, and I do echo everyone, especially Vandana, who mentioned that it's a learning experience. Yes, it's always a learning experience from everyone. What I like about the sessions in general is I think the diversity of the speakers. So you have you have people from as far east as Singapore, and then all the way to the United States, and then you do a pit stop in India. So I think it's really nice. A lot of the panels, which is why I think with every topic, it's quite rich, and that brings me to my moment on deep tech a couple of months ago. And I think that was also interesting, whereby a lot of the panel members who were from the United States, and they were hearing from me about how deep tech is panning out in Southeast Asia. So I think it's really nice that we're learning from each other, because I think how the different technologies panning out, the way we're doing investments might be similar, but there are also differences.
Yep. Yes, I remember that was my panel, deep tech panel.
Yes,
for
that's right. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Fabio. Fabio is on mute.
Well, I'm already, I consider myself a veteran of VCTV. So it's hard for me to pinpoint a particular moment. I'd say that most of the events I participated have had their highlights. I like particularly when somebody corroborates my opinions, obviously, but also when I hear something that really opens up my mind, so that points me in a direction which I had in direction that I never taken, and so that's the value added, the best moment, if you wish, of the event is when a new horizon or a cloud opens up in the sky, and I see, a vision that had been hidden from me.
Great. Thank you, Fabio. It's always a pleasure to have you back on VCTV. Always. Thank you so much. Harsh?
It's my second time on VCTV, and I'm quite excited to be on the third time as well. I think every single time you come, you end up making new friends and having more colleagues to talk about. It's so interesting to have perspective from everyone across the panel, and I think that's what makes VCTV quite interesting and unique. Like I said, every single time, I think that itself is a very unique experience for me. I'm looking forward to be more engaged and having a great time. Thank you.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Harsh. Last but not least, Gary.
Yeah, so I've done 650 of these plus of these VCTVs. So I've done a few of them. And, it's just incredible. I mean, this is like a therapy session, tech therapy session. So you get to talk to people and it's interesting. But I bet, it's great. I see Fabio and you, Sonny, and it's nice to see new friends, Farhan, Vandana, Harsh, Julia. It's great. But I have, I'm curious like a child. So there's one time there's a NASA astronaut and quantum physicist, Christopher Altman, and I'm curious about space tech. And to talk to somebody, he's also involved in the unidentified aerial phenomenon stuff. And to talk to somebody that's directly connected with that, I follow up a lot of times with people, which is interesting. And I'm writing a paper myself on the teleportation of quantum particles, and he happens to be an expert on it as a quantum physicist. So I like that. I've also met, sometimes on VCTV, people don't know, but there's billionaires on VCTV, and you don't know it until you run down later, or they're the representatives. So I've met people that have taken me to, I've got Richard Branson's partner coming on my show, and I just worked up the chain. And it's interesting how many common, friends and that kind of thing. It's really cool. It gives you a chance to be able to stay in touch with and figure out what the trends are going to be, not only what the trends are, but the trends are going to be in the future. So I like that. And it's critically important during this digital transformation for the startups to listen, to figure out how they need to pivot their companies to make sure they're tuned into the market. It's great for the investors to understand what to invest in. And it's the third part of it, it's building a sense of community from people from around the world to share ideas and opportunities.
Gary, you just nailed it very rightly for me as my closing remarks for the show. I said, we have the startups, we have the investors, we have the community, as Gary rightly said. So please, who is stopping you now? Feel free to reach out to me and VCTV team, and we're going to help you place on the panels with all these amazing speakers that we have on the every day. So we cover different topics every day. We have different speakers from all around the world, as everybody said. So that's the whole idea: startups, founders, investors, and the community. We all make VCTV. Thank you so much again for your time, your insights. I really enjoyed the panel as always, and I hope to see you safe, healthy, back again on my panel. So stay safe and get the vaccinations if it's available in your country now. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.